If Aziz Ansari had been Roosh V, we'd never be hearing about this. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and everybody cannot stop talking about Parks and Recreations and then Master of Nuns star Aziz Ansari, and the recent allegations that he was somehow sexually predatory to a woman he went on a date with, and awkwardly hooked up with afterwards. When I first heard about the allegations, I wasn't sure if I would have anything to say. I was thinking, oh boy, another male feminist quasi-SJW being accused of sexual misconduct during a time in which seemingly everybody in entertainment is being accused. Whoop-de-doo. Eventually, like everybody, I looked over the actual account of what happened according to the woman that he allegedly violated to find what everybody else seems to find. Aziz did absolutely nothing non-consensual, and his only crime was being somewhat persistent and pressuring her into doing things that she didn't make it explicitly clear that she wasn't really into. But of course, she did them anyway. And why wasn't she into doing them? Well, it's hard to tell exactly because I don't know the young woman, and all we have is a transcribed interview to go by. But we do know that she was very excited to go on a date with Ansari, as she spent a long time getting ready, sending photos of her outfits to her friends via text messages prior to meeting up and everything. It was only at the date when she started to have reservations, but really only seemingly because he rushed through dinner. It didn't necessarily sound like she was upset because he did anything particularly upsetting, but rather it sounded as if she wanted to finish her wine and have a proper conversation with the celebrity she was looking forward to getting to know on a date in a romantic setting. Back at his apartment, which she had no problem going to, things followed basically the exact same trajectory. Aziz rushed things, didn't allow chemistry to form organically, and didn't give her proper indication that he was in tune with her modest, feminine sensibilities. She obviously wasn't opposed to having sex, but she didn't need to bust a nut like a man. Aziz, of course, was clearly interested primarily in sex, and thus, eventually, after pressuring her into as much sexual contact as she was willing to give to him, she decided to cut it off without sleeping over, which had her leaving in tears. So what should people be learning from this? Well, aside from being reminded that feminist media acts like opportunistic vultures every time a male celebrity is accused of anything vaguely misogynistic, and that this has reached new heights since the Me Too witch hunt, it mainly just tells us something about Aziz Ansari himself. First off, it tells us that he's kind of not all that good at negotiating gender politics because, for one, he identifies as a male feminist in the first place, which is a moronic thing to do, if you ask me. Don't be a male feminist. It's just asking for trouble. And also, he's apologized, which is a stupid thing to do. Not just because you can never apologize to SJWs, as they will take it as an admittance that you've done something wrong, but much more so. When Aziz apologized, he let the young woman off the hook for her own role in the awkwardness of the situation. And that was a really bad choice. It cannot be argued that she didn't leave in tears because she felt violated, but does leaving in tears mean that she actually was violated, or does that mean that she decided to simply feel that way irrationally? I mean, let's face it, what was more upsetting to this young woman? The fact that Aziz tried to make sex with her, or the fact that Aziz clearly didn't think of her as the take it slow and try to marry type, but instead thought of her as the one-night stand type? It sounds like she got her hopes up because she liked him and felt embarrassed when it turned out that he just wanted to get laid more than anything. When the singer Morrissey was interviewed about Anthony Rapp accusing Kevin Spacey of drunkenly trying to have sex with him when he was 14, Morrissey offered a rather interesting insight about the situation. He said, People know exactly what's going on and they play along. Afterwards, they feel embarrassed or disliked, and then they turn it around and say, I was attacked, I was surprised. But if everything went well, and if it had given them a great career, they would not talk about it. Now, I'm not saying that this young woman was necessarily social climbing with Aziz Ansari to help her career in entertainment, because that information is not given, though I wouldn't discount the possibility. Really though, it sounds like she was hoping to seriously date him. But much more than that. I think that it's plainly evident that Ansari's only real crime was being a bit less smooth than he should have been. A bit short of a Casanova, or not quite as much of a Mac Daddy as would have been possible, as it was referred to in the early 90s. It's true that Ansari might have made the mistake of pursuing an overly sensitive young woman, though I don't want to be too hard on Grace as we don't know that much about her, nor what she thought she was telling the press exactly when she spoke about her awkward hookup to a feminist rag, because the press does have a tendency to misrepresent the people they interview. But really, Ansari, who self-identifies as a male feminist and should be allowed to engage in free love as much as anybody, don't slut-shame him, he mainly committed the crime of not doing a very good job of getting the sex that he wanted from her, despite the fact that she obviously wasn't entirely opposed to giving it to him. And this is where I have to start wondering. What would have happened if Ansari simply knew exactly what he was doing and how to do it? What if Ansari was somebody like Roosh V, or at least had become familiar with the work of Roosh V and other pickup artists, who specialize in precisely what Ansari seemed to be lacking in, telling women exactly what they want to hear in order to get them into bed? Now, I'm not saying that manipulating women into bed emotionally with smooth talking and potentially even complete dishonesties is a good course of action by any means. And truthfully, I know so little about Roosh V and other pickup artists that I don't want to say too much about what they talk about. I'm a gay guy anyway, it's nothing that interests me, and getting guys into bed on the first date doesn't tend to be all that hard. However, correct me if I'm wrong, but outside of trash-talking feminism, hasn't Roosh V basically made a career out of coaching horny men with tips regarding how to get women into bed as soon as possible, preferably on the first date or the first time you meet them, without having them realize that the guy isn't interested in anything beyond a one-night stand? I'll be the first to agree that using somebody dishonestly for sex is a bad thing to do, and that you can expect to make a lot of enemies if you go around telling people what they want to hear so that you can hopefully get in their pants. But of course, as pickup artists will gladly tell you, they don't do anything illegal. I'm fairly sure the whole point is to make the woman think that the guy is interested in a full-blown relationship, have sex with her, and then never call her back. The reasons that the guys might do this are likely varying because based around feminist laws, they feel like they are being exploited so that women can use men financially and they want to circumvent that. Still, wouldn't Aziz Ansari likely would have, dare I say it, benefited in this situation by taking a few tips from Roosh V? Sure, it would probably make him a total jerk if he managed to get her into bed where she had a great time having sex with him after he had spent the night pretending to romance her and then he never called her back. But she wouldn't have left in tears. Would she have talked to the press complaining that Aziz had raped her simply because he might have never called her back? Well, I can't say the possibility would be unheard of, but I would find it rather unlikely that the press would be as interested in a story about a woman being mad because the guy she liked never called back. That being said, while I cannot endorse being a pickup artist, my message here is fairly simple. While pickup artists don't give the women they pick up what they ultimately usually want, which would be a relationship, they specialize in the art of making women think that they might give them these things. Whereas male feminists, on the other hand, generally don't really offer women much of anything. I mean, it's not really very hard to do a Google search for feminists complaining about how they never want to date male feminists. And so I ask you, people of the internet, and maybe feminists especially, if you had to choose between a world full of male feminists like Aziz, who leave women leaving in tears, or pickup artists like Roosh V, who leave women happy until they never get a phone call from Saturday night's hookup, which would you choose? I know it sounds like a dreary decision to make, and fortunately, you don't have to make it. Men don't have to be either pickup artists or male feminists. So please, ladies, stop trying to force men to be male feminists, because nobody likes to see women in tears, which is probably why men are learning to be pickup artists. That's all I have to say for this video.